We've been watching a big storm system coming together for your Thanksgiving week, and unfortunately, looks like things have gotten worse. Let's take a look at the upper level winds. This is about 17,000 feet up in the atmosphere. You can see this bowling ball type trough digging down all the way down to the deep south, and pretty significant winds really starting to elevate out towards East Texas later on this afternoon, getting into Louisiana. These are going to be cranking about 90 to 100 knots. That's over 100 miles an hour coming in out of the southwest. And looking at some of the lower levels, about 5,000 feet, those winds are going to be coming out of the southeast. So they were going to be rotating in height. I think things start to originate out here in East Texas this afternoon around noon time frame, and then that will shift over into Louisiana and especially into Mississippi as we head towards dark after about the 5 o'clock time frame. We look at the latest surface map. Here's the overall setup. We've got the Pacific front that's draped across West Texas. We've got a warm front that's highlighted over Oklahoma City and to northeastern portions of Texas. This is your warm sector. You've got dew points well into the 60s down here into the southeast. And as this Pacific front will be on the move later on this morning into the afternoon time frame, we're going to be watching numerous showers and thunderstorms start to break out. And unfortunately, some look like to turn into tornadoes. And it could possibly be even some significant tornadoes as this really winds up. And out here into the southeast, they've got numerous high wind warnings and watches in place, with these winds could be cranking 60, 70, some places in the foothills upwards to 80 miles an hour. Then you got the cold front coming into the backside. They've already got winter weather advisory south of the Colorado Springs region, as that cold air will be draining in on the backside. We've got some higher winds in portions of California into Nevada as well. But for today, this is the main concern. The Storm Prediction Center has now highlighted enhanced risk. I think things get going about the noon time frame. This is likely going to be a tornado watch, going to be up in this region for East Texas. That things get really start to elevate as they go into portions of Louisiana, into the Shreveport region, down here into Jackson, but as far south as Lake Charles, into the New Orleans region, up here and towards Mobile, into all the way into possibly Birmingham, and as far north as even in Memphis, as well as into Little Rock. But where we're seeing the most significant threat as far as like the tornado aspect, this has been a while, folks. This area has not had a tornado warning since June. It's been 5 months. So yes, today is the day that needs to be on high alert, because we're likely going to be under a tornado watch by around noon time frame. But I think once we get deeper into the afternoon, it turns even more significant with possibly significant tornadoes. We're talking possibly EF2 or greater potential tornadoes within the Shreveport region, up here towards the Jackson region, as things get going later on this afternoon, and they really start to amplify as they head towards the nighttime hour. So here's the breakdown. This is your significant tornado parameters. This is about the noon time frame for this afternoon. We're going to be starting to see this area of activity starting to rotate. This is where I think we're going to be under the beginning stages of a tornado watch highlighted across this region, places like into Lufkin, into the Longview region, into Jacksonville, Texas, there down here into Beaumont, Port Arthur region. That'll be extended into the Lake Charles region. But as we get closer to dark, and remember, sunset now is already about 5 o'clock. Sunset is about 5 o'clock in this region, and I think that's when things get even more significant. So this is the higher probability as isolated supercells will become more or less isolated, and those will be rotating, and back into the Jasper region, into Alexandria, into Lafayette, down here towards New Iberia. That'll swing over into Baton Rouge, into Jackson, could be as far north as the Natchez region, as far north as even going into the Monroe region, and that'll swing over into Vicksburg. And as we get deeper into the nighttime hour, That'll swing into Jackson. It'll eventually head towards into New Orleans. So it's going to be a bumpy ride as we get deeper into the nighttime hours. So let's take a look at the overall setup going forward. This is about 1 o'clock this afternoon. Like I mentioned, I think this area will be highlighted under tornado watch by then. And a good part of East Texas and Far East Texas, those areas in the Tyler region, back into the Shreveport region, and then, you know, headed into Little Rock, into Memphis. You're on that borderline into Memphis, right? But as things get going towards that evening time frame, later in the afternoon, towards that 5 o'clock sunset, yes, things get nasty down here into the Jackson region, into the Baton Rouge region. These areas will be rotating, so we could be looking at possibly significant tornadoes within this region, and they will be extending as far north as the Memphis area, and that will be going into the Birmingham area and going into Mobile as we get deeper into the nighttime time frame. This is about midnight. So this is around midnight. This all kind of congeals into kind of a squall line, if you will. You can still have tornadoes within that squall line. So I think, you know, it starts in East Texas around noon time frame, but once we hit the 5 o'clock time frame, I think 5 to 9 is definitely going to be a bumpy ride across those regions into Louisiana and to Mississippi. Then I think things start to congeal about towards the midnight time frame in a kind of a squall line, and I think that's when the wind threat really starts to ramp up across these regions into the Jackson, into the Montgomery region, and that will be extending through Tennessee, and this goes into all night long, going up into Tennessee and up through the foothills there. And some of those winds will be cranking almost 80 miles an hour there in Tennessee. Going into tomorrow, of course, after midnight, going into the, you know, after midnight time frame into Tuesday morning, this just continues. So yes, they've already extended the tornado threat, extending into the New Orleans region by then, down here into Mobile, back into Tallahassee, into Montgomery, does include the Atlanta region, and up here towards us, you know, South Carolina, as well as into North Carolina, as this will continue to race up the East Coast. And we're talking a lot of winds gusts. So you have the Pacific front, and that's going to produce the very high winds, and then you have the cold front on the backside. So that cold front will produce some pretty gusty winds. These are going to be some pretty chilly wind chills on the backside of that cold front, but out ahead of it, you're going to be in the warm sector and very windy. That's why they've got these numerous high wind watches and warnings in place for these areas into Mississippi, into you know, Alabama here, back into northern portions of Georgia, but especially into Tennessee, going through portions of Kentucky, and this will extend into West Virginia. And then going into that Tuesday night into Wednesday morning time frame, yeah, they're still cranking, folks. They're still cranking at a good 70 to possibly 80 mile per hour wind gust at times across these regions, through the Delaware region, into New Jersey, back into DC, into Pennsylvania, back into West Virginia here, all the way through upstate New York. And this will likely extend into Long Island, getting into Connecticut, into Massachusetts, into Rhode Island here. And that will extend, and then some of this will actually be transferring over to snow. But we've got a lot of rain to contend with, so all the activity will be coming in, and then you have that cold front on the backside. But out ahead of it, this is the warm sector. This is the graph on the right hand corner of the screen as far as the amounts go. Anything in red is essentially over 2 inches of rainfall. So a pretty good swath, a pretty significant system that's originating today, that extends into tomorrow, and then starts to wind down up here into the Northeast by the time we head into Wednesday morning. But it all ends is actually snow, as some of that colder air comes in from eastern Canada that we talked about, taps into that low pressure. That'll be bringing out some snow showers across this region, through Pennsylvania, through upstate New York, getting into Vermont and New Hampshire, and that extends into portions of Maine. Montreal could pick up 7, 8, 9 inches of snow from this deal just over the next 2 days, as this low pressure center will be lifting northeast. But I think things start to wind down as we get into that, say, Wednesday afternoon time frame. That's of course, a busy travel day. We got Thanksgiving coming up this week. And so the good thing is this thing is, at the beginning stages right now, but the high impact day for Wednesday, the most travel day, doesn't look as bad. Definitely the morning hours might have some delays and cancellations, but once you get towards the afternoon time frame, things get to settle down in a big way for a good part of the country, as that storm system will be highlighted over the northeastern seaboard by then, and then all this will end as snow up here to portions of, say, Caribou, Maine, and of course, especially up here to southern and eastern portions of Canada. But as we go into that Thursday timeframe, this is Thanksgiving, and honestly, Thanksgiving is probably your nicest day of the week. It just kind of worked out that way. That's a good thing. The only thing we're actually watching is this little disturbance down there in South Texas that could get those guys wet. But other than that, it's pretty dry, but we'll be watching the beginning stages of our significant cold front that we've been talking about. That's going to have a renewed snow threat on the backside of that. So that's going to be a significant threat. But for Thanksgiving, yeah, that's here's your overall high temperatures for your Thanksgiving day. You can see pretty actually, mild, if not, pretty much normal, what you would typically see for Thanksgiving. You got that colder shot with the highs in the 20s further north. That's the beginning stages of a pretty significant cold blast that will be on the table, because we've got a blocking ridge of up here into Alaska. Alaska's had some record snows so far this November, and now that's going to be replaced with a dominating ridge highlighted over that region in northern Canada. That's going to send the pulse of cold air further south into the lower 48 and get trapped, likely for an extended period of time. And when's the last time you've seen something like this, folks? I mean, as that cold air gets blocked and entrenched in the lower 48, you've got almost the entire lower 48 below average. So this looks to be likely an extended cold spell after Thanksgiving starts to get going on Friday. And I think things will be below average for an extended period of time, maybe up to about a week or so, if not almost 10 days across a good part of the lower 48. So we'll be talking a lot about cold weather and snow after we get done with this severe weather threat for the next 3 days, highlighted across the east and the east coast. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.